I had never known before or thought of before. Cyrus and Barbara, you'll know if it's true since you guys are out-of-body explorers. He said that in the beginning of his out-of-body experience, he kind of assumed that the soul or the spirit or the consciousness was inside our body. And in order to have an out-of-body experience, you needed to calm down, release your senses so you can let your consciousness go. And that's why you would get up and look like you have a body, be in your room, you could see your body and all of that. He said that over years of having these out-of-body experiences, he realized that that was based on a belief system that he can, I don't know, as he's sitting anywhere, walking anywhere, literally only shift his consciousness and he is in the astral plane or a different dimension or whatever, that he never, for many, 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 many years, leaves his body, so to speak. He said that was only a belief system that you assume you're going to separate, that something has to leave your body. And so it appears that way. Once you no longer hold that belief system, supposedly, you just shift your consciousness and end up somewhere. What do you guys think?
Well, that's super interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up because I couldn't think of a better, thing to talk about. And, I wish there was more of us in here and we could all appreciate it more. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think Tom also, he does jump, as we know, he jumps to conclusions a lot. I think he is jumping to a conclusion again because on one hand he's right, but on the other hand it seems like even like I'm not attached to the idea that something has to leave my body. It's just that it happens automatically. Like if I'm having astral projection, there's a sensation of leaving the body, right? And so that's why I don't consider it astral projection unless I get the sensation of leaving the body. Because if I don't get that, then I'm going to chalk it up to a dream. And then if I get the sensation and then I'm projecting, that typically means I'm going to have an experience that is, more like a real experience, where compared to a dream where it's all mixed up with imagery and thoughts and random stuff. So it's like that feeling of leaving the body. It's like almost like this physical process that happens, when there's the intention to actually project. So it kind of happens whether I believe in it or not, is what I'm saying, right? So, I could try to believe that, well, I'm not leaving my body, I'm just projecting my awareness, which is true. I believe that can happen, you can do that. But, it's that, I'll feel like I'm rising out of my body. I might very briefly be able to see my room, and then it just transitions straight into like astral projection. I feel like without that component, then I'm not having a true experience. So I also think that there's a lot of literature about something being tethered to the physical body. For example, the silver cord.
Oh yeah, he talks about that in his video too. He also says that's a belief.
And what does he say? It's a belief and he just dismisses it?
Yeah, he said, what did he say? If you guys watch the video, I'm so not good at explaining, but again, it's called like Consciousness and Alternate Realities, and it was just published, I think, today or yesterday. But I believe he says that when the silver cord idea first came up, I don't know, a couple hundred years or something ago, that was a belief system. And so somewhere in the 60s or something, people who had these out-of-body experiences believed that there'd be a silver cord. And then he referenced something about Bob Monroe. He said Monroe had a ton of experiences and he never once saw a silver cord in all of his 40 years or whatever he did. And he said that he himself has never seen a silver cord. So he believes that he said the same way, like when people die, he said sometimes people will have had a near-death experience and they say, I saw Jesus. Well, I saw the Virgin Mary. Well, I saw Buddha. And he said, your hidden unconscious expectations that you don't realize manifest, just like he said when people see scary monsters. He said they may not think that they're thinking or afraid of a scary monster or a big spider with big teeth and blood. He goes, but you'll have an out-of-body experience and you'll see the spider and it's scary. You think it's real, but deep down in subconscious place that you don't realize, you're afraid of things like that. And so that is a fake thing playing out for you, reaching parts of your subconscious that you're not aware of. And that's supposedly what the silver cord thing is.
Yeah, I mean, I actually I agree with him about that, about the creatures, the subconscious. So like he's right, like, but again, Tom Campbell is doing the Tom Campbell thing where he can be 80% right and 20% wrong, and that 20% wrong is going to like muddy the waters, and that's the problem I'm hearing here. Because I mean, the silver cord has has ancient Egyptian depictions, I believe. I also have read many accounts of people seeing it who didn't even know what it was. They're like, what is this weird thing that was attached to my body? I've never seen my silver cord, but that doesn't mean that I doubt that it exists. And the fact that I was very aware of it and was expecting it when I began going out of body but never saw one also kind of makes me doubt his hypothesis, because then I would have seen one, because it would have been in my expectations. It kind of feels like it's part of the school of thought that every single thing is subjective. There's no like objective thing that can occur in a standardized process. So he's trying to argue that there is no mechanism that tethers the body between like other bodies, or kind of the consciousness, tethering it, or the mind tethering it into the physical body. I think logically something has to be tethering it here, because I mean, basically the brain is interacting with this awareness through the mental mind space awareness that is an individual. And so what is the mechanism that's causing these things to interact with each other successfully? Because we know you can get brain damage, you can get problems with that mechanism, and that will interfere with its ability to operate here. So you'd think Tom, as a scientific guy, obsessed with science actually, that he would consider a mechanism happening that would be interacting between that. So that's kind of my feeling about that. I think Tom, I just worry he keeps muddying the waters, because I feel like this seems like another example of that, possibly, before we just toss away the silver cord because he's having certain experiences. That's actually very unscientific. Like, you have to take a lot of different cases of something and put all that data together to be able to make a definitive conclusion. You can't make conclusions in this area by saying, well, I felt this way once, and I had this experience once. You have to put it all together. You can't really make headway that way. Barbara, do you have any thoughts? Barbara, you're muted. You have to start again.
Yes, I find that to be true, that with Tom Campbell, that it's kind of a mixture of things, and it doesn't always ring true, and it's sometimes hard to pinpoint it as to what he's talking about.
Have you seen your silver cord, Barbara?
No.
Have you seen anything scary?
No. No.
See, I wrote to him when so today I left him a message on his video, and I just said, you say that a person's belief system affects what they see, basically. So you being a scientist, and you being a physicist, and you being more detail oriented in that way, then do you think that you are biased in the way that it affects what you see? So you see everything as kind of computer-like, and you call the larger consciousness system what some would call God. You call free will awareness unit what someone would call people. Maybe you think you're getting it right, but because you have a very strict way of looking at the world because of who you are, maybe you're just getting that interpretation the way you're saying everyone else is getting the interpretation.
Touche.
Be interesting to see if he responds.
Yeah, well, you'll see my comment on that thread if you go to it. But that's what I thought. I'm like, well, he just kind of basically said that even he shouldn't know what he's talking about entirely, even though he's had a ton of experiences. He's just interpreting his experiences through his filter, as we all do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because again, I mean, it's kind of like you have that 80-20 truth and fiction with Tom. So I think what Tom is right, what he's onto is this idea that you can potentially, and if he claims he can do that, then that's great. I'm only aware of pretty much kind of Eastern mystical gurus who can actually do this successfully, but just switching your awareness into like a different reality or a different plane of existence, astral plane, whatever it may be, by just closing your eyes and just putting yourself there. I think it's easy to mix that up with like a visualization thing, which is not going to be an objective experience. And so if he can literally do that, then that's quite impressive. I guess
You guys have to watch this literally, because I'm not doing it justice. But while this interview lady was talking to him, I guess on some interview that he must have mentioned in some interview that I never saw, he talked about once he went to this reality that is sort of like our reality, a three-dimensional, but it was so wicked, so depraved, so vile, so horrific that he kept getting killed. Every time he tried to go there, he kept getting his astral body killed constantly because these people were just horrifying. And so the lady in this interview brought that up and said, oh, remember you went to this one horrifying place that was so deplorable. Have you been back since to see if that's still the same way? Well, while he was talking, then he said, well, while you were talking, I briefly went back and visited that place just now. And I can tell there's been some changes. And so he didn't blink an eye. He literally says that he could dual process and go anywhere at any time. He said, once you have the address of where you've ever been astrally, you can always go back. I don't know. I'd be interested for you guys to watch this video and see what you think, because I don't have the experience. You both are well-seasoned travelers. You know and have experienced things that I'm only hearing about.
The idea that he can just, without blinking an eye, just be back there, I think it's a stretch. It's going to be a stretch for a lot of people watching who are trying to learn how to do this kind of stuff without it just being part of your imagination. Because, the goal is to have a real experience on the other side where, it's not just an aspect of your mind. I think that one way that it's possible to do that would be basically remote viewing. And so if somebody is a remote viewer, they could potentially do that where they just get like an information feed about a place if they think about it, that's accurate and objective, right? So I could do that about, I don't know, anywhere. And I could go back to Tucson and put my mind back there and be like, yeah, Tucson's doing pretty well. Yeah, it's getting hot and they're closing the lockdown or whatever, right? I could maybe do that and put myself there if I were a remote viewer. And remote viewing doesn't operate in confines of space or anything. So you could remote view a different reality, different world, different dimension, whatever, just as you could remote view anything. So maybe Tom is doing that. I suppose that's feasible. But I also worry that maybe Tom is trying to come across as like an ultimate ascended guru and, telling people that he can just go anywhere at will and he's all powerful. I don't know. It's strange to me. I don't want to poo-poo it. If he really is able to do that, then that's great. But I have to be a little bit skeptical when someone just tosses those ideas out there,
Yeah, I have no idea, but he did it twice during the interview where he said he just, how he describes it is, he said that in the beginning, he felt like he had to leave his body and then go somewhere. But over time, he learned that it literally wasn't actually leaving anywhere. Their consciousness wasn't located in your body to have to leave. It's located outside your body. and is located somewhere else where the source is or something, and you're just getting this quote unquote data feed that's being downloaded into you so that you can live in this virtual reality of 3D. If you want to go somewhere else, hence the astral or a different dimension, all you have to do is focus on a different data feed. And the only way to do that is to try to take away all your senses here so that you don't realize that you're a human and on this world. He said most times people have to do that by meditating. And then you just, with an intent, switch to a different data feed. That's why he no longer has to lay down and all of that stuff. That's what he claims.
Yeah, and it's funny. I do agree with that. I think in essence, what's happening is that when we talk about like astral parallel selves, which interesting, there was a post in the group recently, a quote by someone basically saying what I said, which was that not everybody maybe has an astral parallel self. It kind of depends on the personal evolution of an individual. But anyway, when it comes to that, like you can access that. Kind of like he said, if you're able to successfully shut off the sensory input from your body here, then yeah, it is like there is that data feed coming in. Hey D, okay, good, you muted. There was some static coming in from your side. Hey, I'm doing okay.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I had to work late, but
it's okay. It's okay.
Good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
But anyway,
all of you.
Where was I? Okay, so the data feed thing, right? So I really like the data feed analogy because it helps to explain the differences between dreaming and having an astral experience. Because dreaming is like you have a data feed coming in from a different world, but then that data feed is being corrupted by your own thoughts, which we can also use the computer terminology of like data that's being corrupted, right? So it's being corrupted by your own thoughts, and you're getting this like incomplete data stream coming in from from the other side. So you'll have like bits of real experiences, and then you have like a bunch of nonsense tossed in that's like from your subconscious. And so that's a lot of times what dreaming is. And so it's like a corrupted data stream. And then when you are astral projecting, you're able to like uncorrupt the data stream, and through like focused awareness, and then you can kind of figure out what's really going on. Okay, so some people can have these experiences in like sensory deprivation tanks and things like that. I think the show Stranger Things touches on that a lot, but I think they pulled their ideas from like actual like things that people claim happen in secret government programs. But the idea is that you go into a sensory deprivation tank, and then you can access, like what Tom says, a different data stream, because you're able to basically, if you can just shut off all the awareness of your body here, then you can localize your consciousness to a different place. And I guess, really it is like our brain is the thing that has us cemented into this world, and so you have to expand your consciousness to be able to transcend beyond that, and then you can locate that where the other data is coming in at, and then you would theoretically be astral projecting. Why I'm skeptical that Tom can just do that off the top, instantly, is because there's too much interference. I mean, you have to, at the very least, meditate. You have to be able to deprive your senses. You have to do something to be able to access something like that, right? I'm worried if he's just using like his imagination and thinking that he's kind of doing something when he's not. Like, I mean, I think at minimally, one of the best ways to deprive your senses and access a different realm is to go to sleep, right? That's why so many people have experiences when they're asleep. But then you can do it through meditation. So I think minimally you have to be able to meditate, deprive your senses, or be sleeping to be able to access something. If someone is talking to you and you're in this reality, like I'm not even aware of any like mystics and gurus and yogis who can really do that, and just switch their awareness to anywhere. I mean, Tom says he can do that. That's pretty interesting, because I think then he's going to be ahead of virtually anybody else. if he can literally do that. I mean, literally. I mean, it would be new territory. Let's just say that if he's really able to do that, maybe he is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that was something new that I read that I found interesting. How about anyone else?
Yeah. Anyone else? I know you came in late, Dee, but that's kind of like we're just going over some interesting stuff that was, I guess, on Tom Campbell's channel. But yeah.
Oh,
Barbara?
cool. Yeah, I just got a book. Matter of fact, I left it on my dining room table. I ordered it, and I don't know who I listened to and heard it. And it's not a new book. Where is it? And it's called, walking through my house, Witness from Beyond by Ruth Matson Taylor. Does that sound familiar at all?
What's it about?
I don't know. I can't remember. I listened to someone, and it sounded pretty fascinating. So I'll let you know when I read it. So that's my newest thing.
Okay.
I was just going to say that, does this all sound like it could be remote viewing? Cyrus, would that be accurate?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was saying before, that it sounds like remote viewing to me. And I think it's important not to mix those things up. Remote viewing is not astral projection, nor is visualizing is also not astral projection. Like, to astral project, in my opinion, you have to be really there, but yeah, I find it interesting, Tom's experience then of being in like that bad place and like dying repeatedly in his astral body. And I think that can happen. It just kind of reminds me of like a video game. So in video games,
exactly, that was what I was thinking.
In video games, like, you respawn, so you go out and you shoot everybody, and then and then somebody kills you, then you respawn, come back again and again. You have a bunch of bodies that you leave everywhere. It's like, and maybe that's a little bit of like, I don't know, pop culture imitating reality on some level. I don't know. But, a lot of people do report that happening, of like, quote, getting killed on the astral plane and then kind of, quote, kind of respawning and coming back. I think that does happen. I've heard a lot about that. It makes sense in an environment like that. It's just that I don't dabble in those types of places, so I don't really know. But people who like comment on the YouTube channel and things like that, they've talked about a lot of those types of experiences. I generally chalk up dying to be something that means I'm dreaming and having like some kind of fear playing out. It doesn't mean I'm actually, being killed on the astral plane. It just means that I'm like having a dream. Dee, I'm hearing a lot of like static or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had muted it. I had my finger there.
No problem. So yeah, it's I usually just chalk it up to dreams, because dreams, you get the subconscious fear playing out sometimes. So I don't think I've ever had like something like that happen to me in an astral environment. But why would I? Because again, I don't go into places like that. So it would be pretty weird unless I did it as an experiment, which I don't think I would, because if I'm legitimately astral projecting, then I'm as solid as I am here, and I would have no intention to like harm myself. So I don't really know what will happen. I mean, I've burned myself astrally to see if I could feel pain, and I did not. And so I'm like, that's weird. I'm not feeling the fire, But then I did other things to see if I would feel pain, and I did, and it was bad enough to send me back into this reality.
Wow.
So.
When you tried to burn yourself, did you feel any effect when you came back?
No, but that's a good question. So with the burning was actually on the kitchen stove in the astral home, and I was surprised to find that I couldn't feel the fire. And I wondered, like, why is that? Like, is it some kind of like a rule here? You can't accidentally feel fire, because that would be too unpleasant. But then I've done other things like, something like, I think I've like hit myself with objects or hammers or things to and then I did, and then that would send me back. Now, but I didn't feel it here, but that can have, people do report that if they, have a physical interaction on that side, then they feel it for a moment when they come back here. There may be something to that. That's also the idea that some people, like, actually there's somebody on the YouTube comments, I believe, who was basically saying that they had an injury on the astral plane. It manifested into like an arthritic like feeling, like where it happened. So like they broke their astral arm or something, and then they had like this arthritic pain for a week in their arm here. Pretty weird
Wow.
story. Pretty weird story. This is just somebody in the comments. I don't know if that's true or not. There seems to be some kind of a relationship between these things. I don't know. It's pretty weird stuff, to be honest. But yeah.
I think it's just strange that you can get hurt on the other side. Like, I listened to a near-death experience story. I think it was on some website. It was like on an IAN's website or something official for near-death. And then they separated it to people who had really good experiences and people who had more hellish, frightening experiences. And this one guy who had a frightening experience, he was in France, I think, and he had ruptured his stomach or something in his stomach, I think, ruptured. Anyway, they couldn't find a surgeon for some reason for a really long time. So he went out of his body, did not know he was out of his body. He just thought, oh, I'm feeling better and I can walk. Well, there's these people that were down the hall. He thought he was still alive and everything was fine. We're saying, come here, hurry up and follow me. And so he went and followed these people, and he said he thought he was going down the corridor to the hospital. And as he was walking, it got darker and darker and darker, and he started going, that sounds strange. What the heck is going on? Well, he said then the people were starting getting nastier and nastier and started calling him names and scratching him and stuff. And so he tried to leave, but they grabbed him, and he said he won't even speak about what happened, but he said it was anything you could ever imagine wouldn't come close to the horrors that he endured. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
And so horrible
Sounds horrible.
stuff. Yes, he's describing this horribleness. And then he said at some point he looked up and saw a pinpoint of light, nothing particular, but it was a pinpoint of light, and he cried out. He was not a believer in God before or anything, but he cried out, God help me, somebody help me. And then he said, I don't remember exactly, someone or something came up and pulled him out of this and took him, what he said was up, and pulled him out of that situation. And then he had a life review and kind of saw that he was maybe a selfish, not very nice person, not like terrible mean, but not very nice person. And he was welcomed with love. And anyway, he came back, and now he's a Christian and all that stuff. But I'm thinking, wait, I always thought, from what I've heard from out-of-body experiences and most near-death experiences, you can't actually be hurt. But he described horrors that would be like so horrible here.
Yeah, that's wild, and it's really unfortunate. That's the flip side to a lot of these topics. I mean, it's why you can't really go down this road without also intermixing like mental, spiritual health, because that's what people have to learn about, like on an educational basis, so you don't have negative experiences or end up basically. I mean, it's just a jungle out there, and there's creatures, people from here who are just so bad, and then they live on that side, and like all they live for is inflicting pain on other people. And I do believe, you can have pain on that side, just because it's almost like you have
What, the Sue?
Barbara? Oh, sorry, I gotta mute you real quick, Barbara.
Mine is.
I do believe that you can have pain on that side, but it has to do with, for one thing, it has to do with someone's level of awareness of their control over their apparatus that they're using. Like, the apparatus that you're using should not have control over you. You should have control over it. In this world, the physical body has control, unfortunately, over us. It's what really sucks about this existence. So if you raise up in awareness, then you should be using your apparatus for you, because you want to, because you like it, because it's something that you want. It's the body should become something that you use because you want to use it. You see, it shouldn't be something that's using you. I think if someone is ignorant, or especially, let's say, somebody who has no belief in an afterlife and doesn't believe they're dead and was kind of a jerk in this world, like they're prime target for other entities to manipulate that and convince them that they're still in their normal body and that, you know, they can do pain to them and they can't do anything about it. So it's like it's putting yourself in the crosshairs of negative entities that could maybe do that to you. So that's why education is so important, so that kind of stuff doesn't happen to, you know, doesn't happen to anybody, you know, but unfortunately it does happen. And when it comes to just like the normal sensations of pain, because you do have sensations on that side, and pain isn't really supposed to be a negative thing. It's supposed to just be something to show you that you're causing harm and don't keep doing it, right? That's the actual purpose of pain. It shouldn't be something to be tortured by. And I think that's how it manifests normally astrally. So like if you're smashing your hand with an astral hammer, you know, the idea is that there's pain. It's like don't do that. You're causing harm to your body. Unfortunately, like in this plane of existence, pain is a much bigger and worse thing than that. But yeah, I do think pain, whether it's pain or pleasure, like these are normal sensations that are part of a vehicle that we might be using, if that makes sense. But I think I'm rambling. Anyone have any thoughts?
I was going to suggest an antidote to Sunday, to this sort of conversation, this sort of video. And that is that Sunday, did you notice that Jürgen's interview was posted a couple days ago? The one that where he was late and you asked your question?
Yes, I did. And he sent something called Afterlife Conversations number 17. He put out there too.
That's it.
Yep,
okay,
and I watched
good.
that. And I watched that too. And I don't remember. Did he talk about? I don't think Jürgen talked about any negative entities, but he did mention briefly about how you can go higher into different planes and stuff like that.
He answered your question about the OBEs and the NDEs.
Oh, I wonder if I missed that
to
part.
To a great extent.
Barbara, can you?
I only saw the
refresh us then?
beginnings of that. Maybe Barbara, maybe you could paraphrase a little bit of what he was saying.
He was saying that the OBEs are usually traumatic events.
Or the NDEs are traumatic events.
I mean the NDEs. And I, as I said to Sunday at the time, I was distracted because I was in the throes of packing. So I've been looking forward very much to the recording. And now the recording is there. So I am going to watch it in detail now that I'm here. And I think I've come to paradise because I was just served a bowl of homemade soup. And that's something that doesn't happen to me. so I am very grateful to be here, but it was a long way coming and I missed a lot of what Jürgen said that day.
I actually remember a little bit. I think I did see this from Jürgen. He was basically saying, yeah, and I agree. So, you know, there are differences with NDEs and OBEs, but actually there are not as many differences as people think. There can be a lot of parallels. So I remember Jürgen said that, yeah, so it could be in the middle of a crisis, and so that affects the type of experience that you have. He also said that there is a possible component of I think it's kind of theoretical. I don't know if this has been scientifically proven, but there is this kind of DMT release that happens or may happen in the brain, and the purpose of that may be to help jettison somebody into an even, into like a kind of like a more cosmic experience, but that seems to eventually kind of fade away. Jürgen said also, well, Jürgen actually said that he's had experiences on this, on this sublime causal type of existence or much higher mental plane. And he actually said many NDEs don't even go up that high. He said that, when you get past the light or the life review or whatever, it's usually very much an astral centric experience. He's actually saying OBEs can be much of can be much grander than NDEs, which I don't know if I agree with that or not. I think there's a lot of NDEs that seem to be in a very advanced type of realm. And then there's a lot that are not. I think it really depends on the person and what they're capable of, where they're capable of going for the most part. And I would also, I guess I would also add to that. But what did I want to add to that? My mind is blanking. Barbara, help me out. You're muted.
I don't think I can help you out. If you give me until Sunday, I will listen to it.
Okay.
I did see it also, but I didn't watch it. Now it's really piqued my interest, guys.
I watched it. I thought I did, but my memory just struggles for the last few years. But I remember him talking about like, okay, so I actually like a week ago or something, he posted something that says, people are saying that OBEs and NDEs are so different, but they're not. And he went through with why they're not. Well, then I responded to him saying, okay, but what about the life review? I don't ever hear people who have out-of-body experiences saying, oh, every time I have out-of-body experience, I have a life review. I have all these, people tell me, okay, now it's your time to go back. You can't stay here. And, sometimes they'll see their deceased loved ones, but it's not like a party. Like NDEs tend to say there's like a party. And then also NDEs, almost all of them say they feel like they've come home, this utter bliss and utter homesickness of they finally are back where they belong. Well, OBEs don't usually describe that either. So when I brought that up to him, I'm not sure if he responded to me, but then a few days later, then I got this video that he was talking about, yeah, there are some differences. And I think he said, you don't have a life review. That is a difference. You don't tend to have a life review with an out-of-body experience. However, he said that he was able to kind of contact the Akashic records because he was able to get a past life glimpse of some of his past lives. So maybe he didn't actually have a life review, but on one of his out-of-body experiences, he was so in this higher realm that he was able to access some information.
By the way, hi, Keely.
Hi, everyone. I was going to say
Hey,
something.
Keely.
Hi. This is kind of about that, but it just reminded me of a show, and I can't remember the name of it. And there was some scientists and a doctor doing research on people that had passed and had an OBE. And it was talking about like the different ones and the circumstances, and it was really interesting. But I can't remember the name of the show. But anyways, most of them had gotten somewhere, and then like they couldn't cross because they were sent back.
You mean an NDE or an OBE?
Oh, I'm sorry, NDE.
Okay.
NDE, yes. And one woman who she was East Indian, she said she was in a big office with a bunch of people waiting in line.
Real
And
quick,
so,
let me just interject. What have I said before about
yes.
Hindu Indian NDEs always being
It's like,
bureaucratic? Anyway,
yes.
keep going.
Yes, and that's what she had said, was like she was waiting her turn, and they were saying like looking at a file. Everyone was looking at a file kind of like, I don't know, but it was talking about what brought these people back is what the subject was and what they were trying to do. And that's when it brought up the doctor who had been doing this experiment for like 15 years and didn't tell anyone, with heart surgeries and putting things on the floor. And then when people would say they saw him do surgery, he'd ask what they saw, and then they'd explain the pictures on the floor. But a lot of it, they were saying, different prayer. Like this one woman, her husband was dead for 6 hours. She didn't call anyone. She was praying over him. And she just asked, can he please be returned? He remembered going somewhere, talking to a bunch of people, and he doesn't know who it was, but they said, you have to go back. And she said that when he woke up, like all of a sudden he woke up, and she said she about had a heart attack when he woke up. it looked like someone had done surgery on his chest. I mean, the whole thing was really interesting. The lady that was East Indian had drowned, and her husband was trying to get to her.
Are you there? I think either I'm losing my connection or you are. Keely?
I don't hear her either.
This must be
Yeah,
her.
I don't either.
It was somebody else's connection for a change, not mine. Okay, Keely. Well, I guess we'll hold that thought until she gets back. But that does sound, yeah, it sounds like a cool program. I was going to ask her to remind us what it was called or where it can be found. But the Hindu NDEs are always interesting because of that. You know, you end up like I died, left my body, and it ended up in an office. I don't know. It must just be a cultural thing, but that's something I've heard a lot, and it's funny. It goes to show you the different types of existences that are out there based upon kind of group soul cultural standards, I guess. But what was I going to say about that? Yeah, I mean, I just like there's going to be differences just logically between NDEs and OBEs, because one is like the preparation for actually permanently dying, and the other one is just taking a stroll. So, you know, logically there has to be differences, and those differences make sense to me. That it would be, I mean, there would, you know, Keely, are you back?
Yes, this internet thing is driving me crazy. Yeah, so anyways, it was like a lot of differences, but they didn't seem like they went to these places like and spoke with, I don't know, they didn't seem as interesting as, say, listening to one of your experiences or Jurgen's experiences. It wasn't the same thing, you know. It didn't have as much detail, and I don't know.
Oh, so
Some of them seemed like they got somewhere higher, but they didn't go anywhere because they couldn't. They had to turn
but
around.
where was the what? This is a TV show?
Yeah, and it must have been 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and it was on Discovery Channel, I think.
Oh,
And
really?
it was
Discovery Channel. You know, it's funny because I mean, when I was a kid, Discovery Channel and TLC, they were basically run by skeptics. So if they tried to bring a topic up like this, they'd have to immediately cut to like Michael Sherber saying, "Well, now I'm going to tell everybody why I think that this is all, you know, nonsensical and caused by brain hallucinations," and then they'd leave it at that.
yeah.
And you know, that was when I was a kid. Maybe they don't do.
There
Maybe it's not.
was a guy like that who was like, no, it's it, you know, he was a doctor, and one of the scientists really didn't believe in it, and there was also like a pastor, another scientist that did. And then when they visited the doctor, it was kind of interesting, that had been doing the research, because the other doctor was like, no, it's just the brain, you know, dying. And he was like, no, that is not the case, because if it was, how could they know exactly what these pictures are that I had on the floor? They were floating above their bodies before they left the room, and they could tell me exactly what they were. And he said, I used to think that way too until I started doing this, and it was for my own. I think he was, you know, questioning if, you know, he was going to go anywhere or not. And he said, you know, he has, you know, he never has questioned it since. And there was another doctor who he said he looks at everything very scientifically, and he loses patients all the time. He was kind of cold almost, but he's not cold. He was just like, you know, that's my job. And unfortunately that happens. And he said a young lady died on him, and he walked out of the room. They were cleaning up the room, and he was getting on an elevator, and he heard a voice that told him to go turn around and work on her some more. And he like said to himself, it's already been 40 minutes. And then he was like, well, screw it. And he turned around, and he, like, the nurses were on there, and they're like, we couldn't believe he would even try again. So he must have been kind of cold. And so he started trying to resuscitate her again. And he heard a, you know, a voice telling him that she would be fine. And so all of a sudden she was. And she had like, I can't remember what it was, but I remember the doctors all discussing it. And he said he was very scientific and just, you know, I mean, when the body stopped, the body stopped. That's what he thought until that happened. And it made him question, you know, everything. And then the heart doctor had a lot to say. And I think at the end, the skeptical doctor was very open-minded.
Wow,
So
that
it was
actually,
interesting.
yeah, that's actually a major difference. Like I said, from when I was a kid, the fact that they would present a story like that and give both sides of the argument and actually kind of leave it in favor of those things
Yeah.
being real is, it's, I mean, that's a lot different. Like I said, I used to see those types of things on Discovery Channel when I was a kid. Same thing I said before.
Yeah.
The purpose of featuring it was just to debunk it, right? And yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, if you can get the name of that show, if you
I
have,
will look for it. Yeah, because when I saw that from Jurgen too the other day, and then the kids were arguing over school or something, and I put my phone down. But it reminded me of that, and I'll look up the name because it was very interesting, and I'm sure we could find it on Prime or who knows, you know, and it would be a good thing to watch. It
yeah,
was
oh, yeah, I
interesting,
would totally watch
and it
that.
wasn't one of those.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and it talked about like from every person's standpoint, and you know, like the woman that came back that had been waiting in the office for her turn, you know, she was like, well, I guess I'm dead, you know. And if I'm in an office, I wouldn't think, oh, well, I guess I'm dead, but she did. And yeah, it was really, really interesting.